everyone, and welcome to this webinar on leadership programming in a pandemic. My name is Emily Counts, and I'm the Community Advancement Coordinator here at ACCE. We are happy to have you on this webinar today, led by Jennifer Reiser, Chief Operating Officer at the Billings Chamber of Commerce. Jennifer will be presenting today on best practices for adopting the current leadership curriculum in logistics, engaging alumni, and future curriculum changes to prepare leaders for the new normal. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started today. All attendees are in listen-only mode to avoid background noise, loud toddlers, and dogs that like to sing opera. At the end of the presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask questions through the chat function. You'll see where I posted a short chat below. That's where you can ask your questions. Please send your questions either to Jennifer or myself, and we will answer them for you. If we don't get to all the questions, we will get back to you. You can also share ideas with the group through the chat and share resources and links. I have shared the PowerPoint presentation in the chat, which you can download at any time. We are recording this webinar and it will be available on our ACCE University page and Events Division page tomorrow, barring any technical difficulties. If you have any other questions, resources, or suggestions for future webinars, please feel free to email them to me at emilycounts@acce.org, and I will get around to that. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jennifer. She is the Chief Operating Officer at the Billings Chamber of Commerce and has been with the organization since 2011. She is a graduate of Rocky Mountain College and holds a certificate of public health from the University of Montana and is a graduate of the CDC's Environmental Public Health Leadership Institute. Jennifer is a 2016 graduate of the U.S. Chamber Foundation's Institute for Organization Management and has served on the West Institute Board of Regents since 2017. And she received her Certified Chamber Executive credential from the ACCE in 2019. In addition to operations and human resources, her areas of responsibility include organizational and leadership development, oversight of events, and member engagement. Without further ado, I hand things over to Jen.
Thank you, Emily. I'd like to start today with sharing just a little bit of background about Billings and the Billings Chamber. Billings, Montana is the largest community in Montana and serves as the dynamic regional center in Southeast Montana. Our population is roughly 150,000, and we are the largest community within a 500-mile radius. The Billings Chamber recently celebrated 100 years and has a membership base of nearly 1,300 members, which represent approximately 45,000 individuals. We are a 5-star accredited chamber and proud to be the 2015 Chamber of the Year. As with any community on the move, Billings faces challenges such as public safety, air service, workforce, aging population, taxing structure inequality, and lack of facilities. So I want to share a little bit about where we are in terms of our state and reopening during the pandemic, because I understand it will be different depending on where you live. We are currently working our way through phase 1 of our governor's reopening plan and continue to telework wherever possible. All chamber staff has been working from home since March 16th and continue to only meet virtually with our members until we reach phase 2 of the governor's plan. Although the current directive does allow for meetings in groups of 10 or less. And in the past few weeks, we've seen a gradual reopening of our retail stores, our salons and spas, restaurants and bars with limited capacity, and most recently, our gyms, fitness centers, and theaters. Today's topic of preparing leaders in a pandemic will focus on adapting our current leadership curriculum and the logistics, engaging alumni, and consider future curriculum changes. The 3 programs I'm going to focus on today are Leadership Billings, which is 2 cohorts of 25 to 30 individuals in each, our Trailhead Leadership Academy, which is our alumni program, and then our Women's Leadership Network and Encore. Leadership Billings, like I said, has 2 cohorts. The focus of this program is to connect, learn, and serve. This, along with the Trailhead Leadership Academy, are established programs, but we do routinely review content and make adjustments to keep them relevant. The Women's Leadership Network is brand new to the Billings Chamber of Commerce. We established it with our first program, Encore, that was launched in late January of 2020. Its focus is on encouragement, networking, consulting opportunities, resources, and empowerment for female business leaders. All 3 of these programs, along with several other peer networks, support our strategic priorities of addressing workforce needs, recruiting and retaining talent, and enhancing value to our members. Here are some things that were overall considerations for us as we continued planning to deliver programming during the pandemic. It was really important to us to place a strong emphasis on altering programming or modifying delivery or rescheduling rather than canceling events and activities. When we revised our budget and looked at where we would be at the end of this fiscal year, where we project being, we left the majority of our end of year expenses for our programs in the budget. We'd already collected the revenue for these programs based on timing. It was also very important that we continue to offer quality content, individualize programming as much as possible, and deliver that wow factor to our participants. We wanted to be able to continue support our chamber member businesses and provide recognition and appreciation for our sponsors. So as we talk about adapting current leadership curriculum and logistics, it's important to understand where we are in terms of our programming. April and May were our last 2 program months for both Leadership Billings and the Trailhead Leadership Academy. We continue to emphasize the goals of connect, learn, and serve. And it's important to us to complete the year and give participants a comprehensive, positive experience. We do rely on word of mouth recommendations and referrals for future class participation, and our chamber member businesses often hold spaces for the next year as they determine who will attend. The focus for April in Leadership Billings was health and wellness. In lieu of in-person sessions with presentations and tours, we provided online learning focused on health and wellness and links to chamber members in those industries. We specifically shared contact information and electronic brochures provided by those that would have been our speakers, our hosts at the April sessions. The Trailhead Leadership Academy hosted a special session with a local team builder and business coach. This gave us a chance to reconnect, revisit our goals for the year, and make plans for what we can do in the next couple of months. The final activities for each of these groups would have been held in May. These are Community Workday and graduation. Both of these activities involve gathering, so since we were unable to gather in large groups in early May, we postponed these events until June. We did, however, add an additional virtual session on our original Community Workday date in early May with several of our previous worksite hosts where they were able to share the needs of their organization and give our participants a preview of the kind of work that they will be doing in June. Each organization had 10 minutes to give an update and state their needs and requests. These are community and social service organizations for the most part. Then I facilitated a question and answer session along with a brainstorming session for participants to consider how they as individuals and businesses can help meet some of these needs now. Community Workday is currently scheduled for June 3rd, and in accordance with current Montana protocol, we are modifying our group size and providing PPE for participants for the workday portion of the session. We will also utilize a health screening questionnaire for each participant the day of the event. Typically, we also convene all of our small work groups together for lunch and a brief program in the afternoon. However, it is still unclear if we'll be able to gather in a group larger than 10. So if we cannot, we'll provide gift cards for restaurants in lieu of lunch that day. That way, our participants can go on their own, go in their small groups to the restaurant, and we can still support some of our restaurant members by purchasing gift cards. Graduation is scheduled for later in June, and as we anticipate being able to gather in large groups by then, we will host this event at the Chamber with modifications to ensure a safe and healthy event, proper signage, and enhanced cleaning and sanitizing procedures. With all three of these programs, we did adjust our attendance policy so that those who were unable to participate in the months of May and June or unable to get away to participate in the virtual sessions would not be penalized for non-participation. As I mentioned, the Women's Leadership Network, and specifically the Encore program, is brand new. It started in January of 2020 and meets the last week of each month. So the 32 participants have only been together face-to-face for 2 sessions prior to this disruption. The March meeting occurred less than 1 week after we closed our office and began teleworking. We had not previously used Zoom or video conferencing, so I was thankful one of our participants offered to introduce me to a business coach in the region that she and her management team use weekly, and we were able to leverage this relationship to provide both programming content and virtual meeting delivery. By the end of April, we were well established with our own Zoom account and decided to host a facilitated session focused on female leaders and being able to lean on each other in times of crisis. We have a wide spectrum of personal and professional situations in our participants, including one that was recovering from COVID-19 and was willing to share her story. With so much virtual programming and development available at low and sometimes no cost, we have been able to offer abbreviated sessions using regional and national speakers without the cost of travel. This also gives us an opportunity to sample their product and consider future opportunities to bring them to Billings in person. Encore typically meets in a 4-hour session that includes education and presentations, small group discussions, and informal social time. So as not to lose that social component and be able to continue to support our chamber member winery, I took the list of participants to the owner and sent an invite to the participants, letting them know that they could stop by the winery and pick up a free bottle of wine, compliments of the chamber at their leisure. Once again, we were able to leverage a previously established relationship and utilize a discounted purchase agreement that we had in place. Just as we wanted to offer a comprehensive and complete program for our participants, it is important that we consider the pandemic's impact on our ability to recognize our program sponsors and deliver the agreed upon benefits. We are still doing a lot of communicating with our members, and we are intentional when communicating about programming to use e-signatures that contain logos of our program sponsors. We have also developed specific backgrounds for virtual video meetings that include our sponsor logos, and this is great visibility for them as well. We have increased our social media posts and added additional shout outs in e-communications. We also offered first right of acceptance to our existing sponsors as we pivoted to alternate delivery methods like webinars and virtual events. Leadership Billings alumni are included in Chamber e-communications, encouraged to follow us on social media, and are invited to participate in all Chamber programming and activities. During the pandemic, as we offered virtual engagement opportunities in teletown halls, industry focus groups, and webinars, personalized invitations were sent to all alumni. The Trailhead Leadership Academy has served as our programming for our alumni for the past 3 years. Participation has been steady, but has never really been at the volume we'd like it to be. And we already had plans to make adjustments to this program, and will continue with those plans throughout the summer. We intend to establish a Leadership Billings alumni network much like our Next Gen Emerging Leaders Network that we created 6 years ago, which has a separate dues and leadership structure. So what's next for us? Well, we're recruiting for 2021. Our leadership programming begins in October, and we're hopeful that we can launch our program as we typically would, with, of course, some modifications. We will continue to operate the Women's Leadership Network and Encore throughout the calendar year, as that program will continue until December. We did launch the recruitment for the classes of 2021 on April 1st, which is the typical day that we open registration. We know people are looking forward to it. We know people plan for it, and we did have 3 people register in the very first week. We will likely budget for a slight decrease in attendance and also prepare to consolidate to 1 leadership Billings class if needed. But we do plan for that every year just in case the numbers don't merit 2 classes. We will also consider enhancing our programs with virtual programming as a routine offering, particularly in our colder weather months and when utilizing regional or national speakers to manage travel costs. We also anticipate that our regular programming, particularly on Business Day, will include industry updates and economic recovery information, including economic projections for specific industries in our area. We will add an enhanced questionnaire regarding symptoms and illness and contacts to our already established medical history and liability release. In addition, as we modify our leadership development contact, we will include the importance of preparation and leading through crisis. As you consider what's next for your programming, I encourage you to focus on what you can do relative to your leadership development programming, and also consider what you've had to do during this time and will choose to do moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. You have a bunch of questions in the chat. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right.
You can't see them. Are you going to read them to me?
I'm going to read them to you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So just for some extra clarification, where were you in the program when you had to switch to virtual?
The Leadership Billings and Trailhead Leadership Academy programming runs from October until May. So we switched to virtual mid-March. So we really only had 2 months left of that program, of those programs. The Women's Leadership Network runs the calendar year. So we'd only met twice. And so we're very early on in that program. And we've had, well, next week will be our 3rd virtual session for that group.
Okay, thank you. And then what do you charge for participation, if you charge at all, for your women's network?
Currently, the Women's Leadership Network is $500 per participant, and that is 10 half-day sessions between January and December. This is brand new, so we might modify that as we move into this next year.
That's understandable. Are you still doing a 4-hour day online for your leadership programming in your women's network?
No, we are not. Our leadership programming in normal times or in typical times is a full day program. And then the women's leadership is a 4-hour program. None of those have been that long. They've been all between 1 hour and 1.5.
And did you make that change to help with attention span or people's schedule, or what made that change?
Pretty much that. I think most things, all of those considerations, I guess, most of what you read, within 45 minutes to an hour, people lose concentration when you're trying to do virtual learning. However, with being able to kind of separate our sessions into chunks where it's still education, maybe presentation, and then discussion, that has kind of helped be able to extend it to be a 90-minute program.
And thank you for that. And then can you go into more detail about what is in a special quarterly sponsor recognition, such as an example of what that looks like?
What was the first part?
Special quarterly sponsor recognition that you mentioned.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes. So some of that is our communications team puts together a regular quarterly e-communication newsletter, if you will, that contains things like new member information, maybe ribbon cuttings, business celebrations, and we look back at what were the events and activities that occurred during that quarter and give special recognition, recognition, I guess, to those sponsors. So say we had in January, February, and March, those 3 months, there might be the agriculture appreciation celebration, there might be the Billings Chamber breakfast. Those sponsors get an extra recognition during sort of that summary. So it's kind of a summary of what the events and activities were during that quarter and who those sponsors were.
Okay, thank you. And then we have a question about how many leadership program participants were unable to participate in the alternate virtual sessions.
We probably had 75% of the people participate in the virtual session. The community workday, kind of shifting everything and adding one more month onto our program year, presents some challenges for our participants. I have a couple of medical providers who are in those groups, and they did not anticipate being gone those days and already scheduled appointments. There's not any way for them to be out of the clinic. And that's just one example of why somebody may not be able to participate. But for the most part, we've had between 60 and 75% participation in all of our online networking and programs.
Cool, thank you. And then can you tell the group more about the due structure for alumni? How did you launch an alumni network and keep people involved?
Well, we've done it differently for the last 3 years than we intend to do moving forward. The last 3 years, we did the Trailhead Leadership Academy, which was a 1 day a month, October to May program focused on utilizing what you learned during the Leadership Billings class and selecting particular specific community issues in which your group wants to tackle. This year, our group focused on career readiness and also placemaking as a workforce retention tool. And so we had presentations and did tours and activities related to those topics. In previous years, the group has selected other community issues, so it's very much dependent upon what that group of people wants to work on. Like I said, our groups have been small. Previous to that, before we had the actual programming, we did some socials and some education and things, and that was kind of hit or miss. The last 3 years, we've engaged 40 total participants in that program. And we think that by creating a leadership team of leadership alumni, they can help me establish some quarterly programming that would be based around the Connect, Learn, and Serve kind of mantra that goes along with our leadership programs, where we can do some social networking connection, we can do some service work, and some learning and professional development. And by engaging graduates from previous classes, I'm looking to have a kind of a leadership team or support group that can help me with some of that programming. So it isn't just me trying to come up with relevant content or information that they would want. We have not launched that piece yet, so that network will be brand new starting in July. But we have roughly 250 young professionals in our Emerging Leaders Network. And I think that in the next 5 years, we could potentially grow our alumni network to look something like that.
Cool. Thank you for answering that one. Another question for you. Have you considered requiring attendees to take a COVID test before attending your programs or taking temperatures at registration for an event, for future events?
We haven't quite got to that point. I guess we would look to our county public health officials for guidance in that. Not as we're wrapping up our programming. I mean, we won't start up again until October. So over the course of the summer, not sure what we'll be facing. We're certainly going to be open to those recommendations and suggestions, primarily from our public health professionals and partners in that area.
Thank you. And then did you get any pushback from your Women's Network participants about going virtual? Did anyone ask for refunds?
No, not at this time. They have not.
That's awesome. And then how did you reduce a full day of curriculum into a 90-minute virtual session? Well,
you just have to be very selective and be okay with leaving things out, which was really difficult for me. It just becomes what needs to be or what you can highlight during the virtual session. You kind of pick and choose, and then providing documents and links for further review as people want more information and want to explore that on their own. So, we knew darn well we would not be able to provide the full health and wellness day where we normally tour our hospitals, get to see the helicopter pad, go to neonatal intensive care units, those kinds of things, learn about cath labs. We didn't get to tour and see those things, but I was able to send links and video that were provided by those healthcare organizations so that people on their own could take the time to explore. I don't know that anybody actually used everything that was provided to them, but I would expect that they're the kind of folks that would want to learn more and would utilize at least some of what was given.
Thank you. And we have just couple more oh my God, I can't talk right now. A couple more minutes for questions, so I'm going to give you a couple, and then if your question was not answered, Jen and I will reach out to you later with that answer. So please feel free to keep sending your questions in. I love these questions. So yes. And so Jen, as you are looking, or as this person is looking to diversify their revenue streams, can you share how successful these programs have been at generating revenue?
Yes. Our Leadership Billings program is by far our largest net revenue generating program. I can give somebody, if they want additional information on the sponsorship pieces and the details on that, I'm happy to communicate that via email if someone wants to reach out. The Trailhead Leadership Academy, after 3 years, has not been particularly fantastic at generating revenue, but we did decide in the beginning that we were going to commit to it for at least 3 years to see if that would be an effective way to engage alumni. And maybe that engagement in itself was value enough to be able to grow leaders and pipeline for chamber board membership and community chairpersons and things like that, or committee chairpersons. And the Women's Leadership Network is brand new. We actually didn't intend to develop it the way it turned out. So when we budgeted last year, this isn't what we thought we would get, and we were pleasantly surprised in the number of applicants and the amount people were willing to spend to participate. We did a lot of focus group work and a lot of survey work for the first 6 months prior to starting the group. And so we have a better sense now for next year, although I'm not sure that, hopefully the 32 participants this year, as we begin to get back together, will see value in it to the point where they'll be able to share their experience and recommend it for other people. So too soon to tell, I guess, what next year brings, but we'll be conservative in our budgeting, as always, and then a little more aggressive in terms of, marketing and recruitment.
Thank you, Jen, for your wonderful presentation and answering all of those questions and answering the questions that went unanswered during this time. I really appreciate it. I did share Jen's slides in the chat. If you do want to download that at this time or save the chat, you can do so now. I will be uploading this to ACCE University with the slides this afternoon. I'm hopeful about that. But if not, it will definitely be up there tomorrow. And just thank you everyone for your participation in today's webinar. Just to note that next Wednesday on May 27th, we will have an all division roundtable for our events division professionals on safely hosting in-person events and hybrid events. Sign up on our ACCE events division page. And that is it for now, but thank you everyone for participating today, and I hope you are having a great Tuesday, and yeah, have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Goodbye.